What a beautiful morning. That bright Canadian sun is melting away the cold. The birds are chirping, the children are singing. I think I might grab a cup of hot chocolate and take my polar bear for a... Oh shit. Are we back?
Oh, we are so fucking back, that's right. A motherfucking chainsaw shield. Fuck yeah. Holy fuck, I don't know what's heavier, this fucking flail or the erection I'm gonna use to skull fuck your entire fucking bloodline and grind them down to ammunition to fucking do it all over again. Look at my gargantuan fucking nutsack, you Titanfall wannabe piece of demon shit. Yes, fuck. That's what the beat mixed my raw fucking ejaculate tastes like, bitch. Holy shit, I just doomed fucking everywhere.
Doom the Dark Ages is the third installment of the modern Doom trilogy, and it fucks. id Software have once again spanked the wheel on its ass and brought Doom to places no one could have predicted. A trip to the past where sci-fi meets medieval fantasy in a shockingly fitting genre blend. Combat that evolves the best parts of both 2016 and Eternal, while still establishing its own badass identity. A bigger story in both scope and scale, levels that push exploration to its limits, and entirely new vehicles of play on top of it all. And come on, the Slayer is dripped the fuck out in a badass cloak, which is all this game really needs to sell you on it, and fuck me, it knows it. This is the biggest Doom game ever made, both in the size and length of its campaign, as well as the sheer girth of Doomguy's steel cup, but it's also the most divisive. Contrary to previous titles, id Software went all in on its single player, with no fucks given to anything other than delivering the best single player campaign possible. And the result is a game with unprecedented levels of scale, variety, and risks that didn't all pan out as well as they could have. Hi there, welcome to the Doomger Zone. Doom the Dark Ages is a lot of things, and contrary to what you might think, bad certainly isn't one of them. It's a testament to id Software's capacity to innovate, another ass-to-taint meat grinder that still manages to capture its own identity with just as much blood, guts, and testosterone as ever before. It's the Doom with a Parry, and a game that is certainly not without its flaws, but still unmistakably, Doom's just as fucking hard where it counts. And no, this game is not Doom Eternal 2, and that isn't a bad thing. You might have caught on by now, but Doom the Dark Ages fucking rules, and I'm gonna tell you why. So strap in, buckle up, and hide your kids, because we're about to punch, kick, spank, spit, rip, and tear our way through yet another Doom game, and remind ourselves of the singular unholy truth that these games teach us. Violence is the answer, and if it's not working, you're not using enough. Cue the fucking montage. Fuck it. Meet the Tank Slayer. In Doom the Dark Ages, Doomguy inhabits the role of a Leopard 2A4 battle tank and is an immovable, unbreakable, unstoppable fucking unit. From the weight and sound design of every footstep you take, to the casual destruction of every object you walk through, to the seismic crater you emit from every high-altitude landing that tears through fodder like they're made of newspaper. This is the first Doom game with a dedicated sprint button since 2004, and you feel the momentum with every step. The sheer density of your stature is on full display through your surroundings, and the impeccable fucking sound design is unmatched. Without even killing a single demon, you can feel what this game wants to be. Contrary to Eternal, Doom is once again grounded with a focus on positioning and dodging projectiles. You won't be dashing through the skies and meat-hooking your way across the map this time around. But does that mean it's any slower? Fuck no! One thing that the previous two entries so elegantly established was a resource-driven combat loop that can only be described as cocaine-powered fever dream from hell, blissfully fueled by unbridled violence, glory kills for health, chainsaw for ammo, and in Eternal, flame belch for armor, a set of mechanics that drove you into the chaos. Only through violence can you sustain yourself, where aggression is not just incentivized, but essential. If you weren't diving headfirst into hordes of demons, ripping as many heads, limbs, and torsos apart as humanly possible, then you weren't playing Doom. This time around, that loop remains fundamentally intact, but has shifted its components to form something entirely new, and it starts with melee. When it comes to ammo, in place of the chainsaw are 3 melee weapons that all have their different uses. The gauntlet is designed for single target devastation, delivered through a 3-chain hit of attacks. The flail has more range and does damage to groups, and the mace has a single charged hit with a much slower attack speed, but will replenish all your ammo in one devastating swing. You have 3 options with 3 different forms of utility that alters your resource loop, while also driving home that distinctive medieval setting. And while you can't swap between them on the fly, it's the first instance of interchangeable loadouts that alters your playstyle, which does wonders for replay value as you dive headfirst into hordes of demons, using whichever weapon you prefer. But in the Dark Ages, you aren't fighting hordes, you're fighting armies. Fodder demons are now ants to crush on the sidewalk. They're far less of a resource bank than they've been in the past, but combined to serve that function in groups, and whenever you're low on health. But if there's 1 ounce of worry that anyone has about this game, it's centered around the removal of glory kills. And make no mistake, the traditional glory kill is gone. But is it? Yes, they are relegated to aerial finishers, which happen far less often than in previous titles. But before criticizing the removal of Doom's most defining mechanic, we need to know the trade-off. So what drives Doom's combat loop this time around? Well, it's still fucking violence. In the Dark Ages, you don't glory kill for health, you just kill. Finishers are no longer synced animations, but are devastating melee strikes that smash demons into literal chunks. The trade-off is more fluidity, faster-paced combat that breaks far less often, but still fuels the testosterone-powered bloodlust that Doom's combat thrives on. Melee strikes for ammo, kills and executions for health, and there's no flame belch. But the combat shotgun and the flail can be upgraded to burn enemies, and anytime you break a demon's armor, you get some for yourself as well. The resource loop is streamlined, simplified to one central action, but aggression is still the central motivator. Violence is still your primary objective. In other words, it's still Doom. And with how chaotic arenas get, continuous control during finishers is invaluable because poor positioning is heavily punished, and maintaining awareness is crucial to leveraging strategic depth. However, I'm still gonna say it. I wish there were more glory kills. Oh, shut the fuck up. I agree with the change to remove finishers on fodder demons entirely. It makes the game a lot faster, but glory kills are the defining mechanic of modern Doom, the constant reminder of why the only thing the demons fear is you. And I don't know about you, but I never once got tired of the gruesome creativity on display in both 2016 and Eternal's glory kills. Every single one of them was brutal, bloody, and orgasmic, and I could do that shit all fucking day. You do absolutely feel the benefits of unsynced finishers and the flow and pacing of combat, but surely there's a compromise somewhere, with at least heavy demons and up. Yes, there are demonic essence finishers, which are awesome, but there's only one animation, and only 4 or 5 different aerial kills that, even when considering how less frequent they are, do become repetitive by the end of a playthrough. What can I say? Glory kills are orgasmic, and there are just too many gruesome acts of violence to imagine with the arsenal that Doomguy has this time around. Now, at some point you heard me mention strategic depth, while also saying the resource loop has been streamlined. So you're probably wondering, what the fuck is up, Jay? How can those both be true? Well, first of all, you silly bitch, complexity in games doesn't equal depth. And second of all, this game still has both. Where Doom Eternal's depth stemmed from mastering the complex onslaught of different abilities and weapons, and pushing that mastery to drive creativity and proficiency in combat encounters, the Dark Ages shifts all that shit to one singular tool, the motherfucking shield saw.
Oh, I love this fucking game.
The shield saw is fucking awesome. Yeah, sure, the Souls player in me gets an erection from a good parry mechanic, but it's more than that. With the shield comes the brunt of mechanical depth that the Dark Ages has to offer. The shield bash instantly adds the fastest movement we've ever had in Doom. You can dart around this game's massive arenas much faster than you ever could with the meat hook, and arrive at your destination with destructive force. The shield toss is critical for destroying enemy armor and has a great deal of utility through its ability to stunlock heavy demons or just channel your inner rated R Captain America and obliterate fodder from a distance. Blocking is one of the more crucial forms of defense that has to be carefully managed. Especially in higher difficulties, there are a lot of projectiles flying your way, and you won't always be able to dodge them. Breaking your shield is a mistake that's heavily punished as it renders you completely defenseless for the equivalent of an eternity in Doom time, which creates a very real balance between positioning and managing your shield's health. And yes, I call this game the Doom with the Parry, because, well, it's a damn satisfying parry. And it's at the core of that stand and fight philosophy that this game is positioned so heavily with. It's the mechanic that imbues the reactivity and defensiveness that a parry brings with the aggression and speed of what makes a Doom game a Doom game. And when combined with shield runes, it becomes even stronger. Shield runes are the second instance of an interchangeable loadout in the game that each offers their own powerful attacks whenever you parry a projectile. From a shoulder turret for precise single target damage, to a flurry of magic knives for group AoE, to a powerful lightning strike for a damaging stun. There are 4 to pick between that alter how you use the parry, and they are all a blast. The shield can do a lot, and when you leverage the full range of its capabilities in tandem with the game's weapon and enemy design, the layers of mastery and depth manifest for a combat loop that is nothing short of exhilarating. There are a plethora of new mechanics to learn in this game, and they are still tutorialized with menu screens that pause the game, which isn't the most immersive form of onboarding, but this was a far bigger problem in Eternal than it is here. That game has so many mechanics to introduce, the game stopped every 5 fucking minutes for the first third of the game. And here, it's better, because the complexity is harmonized to one beautifully violent instrument. And come on, is there anything more Doom than a fucking chainsaw shield? Of course, like any Doom addict, after my first playthrough, I watched Under the Mail's review and gained a newfound understanding of life, learning more in 1 hour than I had in 4 years of university. Probably. The sheer number of interactions, layers of mastery, and proficient combinations of tools that result in meaningful mechanical choice, which is what depth is, by the way, is insane. It's enough to instantly warrant a second playthrough, which I highly recommend you do. I'm talking about knowing the best combinations of attacks to falter and stun different enemies, managing how many projectiles you can block before your shield breaks, recalling your shield at the end of a toss lock to extend the duration of its stun, deciding who on the arena is the most immediate threat to stun lock. And when you consider each individual demon, the well of intricacy gets deeper. I won't cover every enemy type, but I will talk about most of them, because there is some good shit here, between the medieval fantasy twist on the demons we know and love, to how they each challenge your mastery of different mechanics in engaging ways. I mean, Pinky Riders are just the perfect medieval evolution of Pinkies. Revenants have never been this cool with their warlock high fantasy looking ass drip and their evasive movesets that are best locked down with a shield toss. Hell Knights and Battle Knights especially are gladiators that pressure the need to master parrying with their aggressive onslaught of attacks. Arachnotrons will laser you with hit-scan machine guns from a distance, forcing you to manage your shield's block and get in close before you're left defenseless. While enemy weak points are no longer a thing in this game, you can absolutely blow the limbs off a Mancubus and turn it into a slow, useless blob that once again reminds me of your mother. And I don't think the Cacodemon has ever been this scary. It's a cosmic Cacodemon now, and if you get close to it, it will kill you quickly. And from a distance, you still have to contend with the overwhelming velocity of its projectile attacks. Even the smaller demons in this game get to shine, with stone imps being immune to a shield toss but are instantly destroyed with the shield bash. Or on the other hand, stalker imps can't be targeted with the shield bash, but can be stunned out of their invisibility with the shield toss. Every enemy in this game has different weaknesses that can be taken advantage of in different ways, and every aspect of the shield has to be leveraged if you want to survive in higher difficulties. Target prioritization, resource management, and precision are just as prominent here as they've been in the past, and when it comes to the super heavy big boys, they don't disappoint either. Cyber Demons, Vogari, Komodo, Egadon Hunters, and Cosmic Barons all want you nice and close for melee range and are fought with an exchange of blows and well-timed parries that plays out like a fucking medieval duel. Enemy design has always been one of Doom's universal strengths, and the Dark Ages is no exception. There's a clear symbiosis between enemies and the Slayer's arsenal, and I've barely scratched the surface of the complexity and depth it breathes into this game. I'm talking how to master instantly dispatching Revenants with a shield toss super shotgun combo, or tactically using a Mancubus as a pincushion to ricochet nails to nearby demons with a shredder. The game definitely feels like an archvile or two short, but what's here is exceptional, and that's what matters. And the last piece of the puzzle is guns. Weapon usage in Doom the Dark Ages takes the 2016 approach, stepping away from the rapid weapon swapping and scarce ammo economy in Eternal for combat that lets you use the guns that you prefer over anything else. Ammo is plentiful, and while each gun certainly has its different strengths and weaknesses that shouldn't be ignored, there's also a lengthy weapon swap animation that actively punishes swapping at the wrong moments. While quick swapping is still a mechanic, it's not very quick, and while the control scheme has been streamlined to group weapons into categories with a faster, separate input to swap within each category, it's still slow, and you are vulnerable during that animation. This game isn't designed around forcing proficiency with every weapon, which I actually like about it, but actively punishing doing so is a choice that limits depth far more than it emphasizes the style of play it's pushing. You don't need to weapon swap often, but does that mean it should be disincentivized? I don't think so. But that said, when discussing the weapons themselves, I feel extremely comfortable saying that this is the best, most egregiously badass, unnecessarily fitting, and astonishingly satisfying arsenal of weapons that we've ever had in Doom. Period. The staples are of course back with the combat shotgun, but it feels just as good this time around as the super shotgun, which fucking annihilates anything in front of it. The shredder is your standard everyday automatic, except it fires big ass nails, so it's cooler, and its ability to ricochet bullets off shield toss demons is a fun interaction to say the least. The impaler is your single bolt precision nail gun that fucking pins enemies to walls, pops heads off demons like a water balloon, and feels incredibly rewarding to master between gauging the drop off of its projectiles and the sheer damage it does with headshots. 10 out of 10 gun. But do you know what's better than a plasma gun? That's right, twin-barreled fucking plasma gun. The accelerator is mid, but the cycler is far from it. And fuck me sideways, I haven't seen a more outrageously fitting set of weapons than the Pulverizer and Ravager. Because are you fucking kidding me? Guns made for clearing hordes at a time, fueled by the skulls of the very demons you're slaughtering for ammunition. Whoever came up with this idea at id Software needs a raise and should be placed on a watch list. But other than that, the rocket launcher is of course back. And it's still a rocket launcher, but it's somehow better with its ability to turn self-damage into self-heal after a parry. And on top of that, you also get a grenade launcher, which I didn't use much compared to the rocket launcher, but it has its uses. But there isn't a gun in Doom's history that stands out more than the chain shot. Why chain gun when you can ball and chain gun? The chain shot is one of the most satisfying FPS weapons I've ever had the pleasure to experience. Seriously, it's orgasmic when you upgrade this thing to charge its shots after every parry. It breaks armor just like the shield toss, and fighting a super heavy by launching charged shots between parries and smashing any armor it has to pieces are fights that leave me rock solid for days just thinking about it. And with all else equal, when shit gets too chaotic, the only thing cooler than a big fucking gun is a big fucking crossbow. Yes. Just yes. The break glass in case of emergency nature of the BFC doesn't stray very far from its BFG counterparts and is still scarcely limited to the pickups you find throughout levels. The Slayer's guns, simply put, are cool as shit, well balanced, and all feel incredible to use. And as a whole, combat in the Dark Ages stands on its own 2 feet, right up next to 2016 and Eternal, and the last innovation it brings is the extent to which you can customize it. Everything I've discussed about combat thus far has been judged from the default difficulty settings, because one of the more interesting additions to the Dark Ages is your ability to completely customize the flow, pace, and difficulty of combat. Throughout both my playthroughs, I didn't change much other than making the parry window less forgiving, because I'm not a bitch, but accessibility is always great. It's your game. Play how you want to, as long as you're having fun
and curb-stomping demons with vigorous intent.
Then that's all that really matters, isn't it? But this isn't just an accessibility feature. It allows you to experience combat in dramatically different ways, tailoring settings to create unique challenges and unlocking a whole new avenue of replay value. And if you are one of those individuals who claims that these settings ruin the game to appeal to bad players, then I have a message for you.
Grow the fuck up, they're fucking settings. It's optional. I don't see a screenshot of every single one of your sliders set to max. Then I'm going to personally come to your house and throw you into the fucking cosmic realm myself. You small-minded, tiny brain cell count fuck. They're fucking settings.
If you want the standard, id Software intended Doom experience, then the default settings are exactly that, and they are incredibly well balanced, providing the exact challenge I was looking for on both Ultraviolent and Nightmare. And the replay value that these options unlock is worth far more than any low IQ troglodyte who looks at settings and cries about it. Doom the Dark Ages isn't as complex as Eternal, and it's not as blissfully direct as 2016, but it is the perfect hybrid between the two. The grounded run-and-gun combat of 2016 and the depth and mobility of Eternal come together in a package that is incredibly distinct from both. This game has its fair share of issues, as the rest of this video will detail, but when it comes to combat, it doesn't miss. And when push comes to shove, that's the only thing that really matters in a Doom game, isn't it? I've always adored Doom's commitment to simply being a video game over anything else. No seamless transitions, bloated open worlds, one-take cinematics, or realistic workarounds for mechanics. Just simple, fun Doom levels with menu screens in between. It's a video game, and it's not trying to convince you otherwise. It's trying to immerse you regardless. And it does, through the enthralling viscerality of combat, but also through environments, level design, and progression. Since 2016, Doom has never failed to deliver eye-catching art direction, and this title is no exception. This game looks as good as it plays. I'm a sucker for sci-fi and adore a cool fantasy setting. They are my two favorite genres of anything, so you could imagine when the perfect stylistic blend of medieval sci-fi came to Doom, so did I. From bleak medieval villages to towering stone castles and flying demonic boats with an equal amount of cybernetic energy weapons, futuristic spaceships, and robotic aliens. This game is dripping with style, and I'm here for it. The detail of every background is insane, the fidelity of every foreground is mesmerizing, the sheer variety of environments from forests to underground mines, desert landscapes, and of course, hell, is impressive. This game is set in the middle of a war, and it's a war that's on full display. The absolute scale and detail of every background is akin to what we saw in Namora from Tag 2, except it's replicated throughout this entire game. Titans clashing in the distance, armies charging into one another with the destruction that surrounds affecting the levels themselves. The term medieval Doom is the DNA that runs through every aspect of this game, and how it's brought to life in its art direction brings it front and center. But when you're not gawking at the medieval architecture or ripping and tearing through demons, you're exploring, working through levels and taking those moments of calm in between combat to chase down this game's forms of progression. Progression this time around is the simplest it's ever been. You collect gold and gemstones around the map and you upgrade your shit, said shit being your weapons, the shield, and shield runes. And that's enough. Doom has never been known for its groundbreaking progression systems, but the real winning change has to be tying health, armor, and ammo upgrades directly to combat. Demonic Essence demons are a more fluid, reliable, and fun means of upgrading your core stats than tracking down Sentinel crystals or obscurely hidden Argent cells ever was. It puts the key upgrades you need to properly scale power on the direct path, making for a far more balanced experience to the average player who might not enjoy spending hours hunting for secrets. But there are still secrets, and getting to them is the next piece of the puzzle. Without Eternal's wide array of movement abilities, traversal and puzzle mechanics are much simpler. We can shield bash through some shit, yeet ourselves towards a thing with the shield toss, break shit with the shield toss, activate more shit with the shield toss, and climb a little. While sprinting, your jump also carries a lot more momentum, which is also leveraged in some light platforming sections throughout much of the game. And while what's here is certainly not an improvement to what came before, Doom 2016 was never much of a platformer, and are we really going to pretend to miss swinging off monkey bars in Eternal? I don't know, but I wouldn't worry too much about it, because there is a mechanic from Doom Eternal that has made a triumphant return. That's right, the most requested feature that had fans begging for its resurgence, the thing that's so fun you don't want it to stop, so engaging you can't get enough of, so momentous you don't want it to end. Swimming.
Much fucking swimming.
With id Software's determination to innovate brings an evolution in the Dark Ages level design, because there was far more here than just your standard reliable Doom levels. But don't worry, it's still mostly your standard reliable Doom levels, which is good because they are still the best this game has to offer. But there's also more, the first of which are the game's semi-open worlds that have an added focus on exploration and non-linear objectives. Not dissimilar to the structure and size of a modern God of War quest, you're dropped onto a map with huge open areas and plenty of diverging paths with dozens of secrets to uncover. You can tackle sets of objectives in any order you please, and the result is Doom with a non-linear twist. The flow and pacing of these levels are determined entirely by how much you choose to explore. Spend time hunting down every secret and they become some of the longest levels in the game, but purely gun for the main objectives and they become some of the shortest. But that's not to say there isn't a healthy balance of combat encounters in between, because these levels feel like war zones. Arenas are massive open battlefields, and you'll find plenty of enemies around every corner. There is a real sense of freedom in these levels that previous Doom games just don't have. It's a refreshing change of pace, but these areas are massive, and with how many secrets there are to find, the one problem they suffer from is burnout. If you're a completionist especially, these levels might drive you insane with how much back and forth traveling you'll end up doing trying to find everything. There is also a fair amount of burying your face on the map trying to get to every question mark. but that's also always been the case in modern Doom games. The difference here is you're shown where everything is, so you won't have to scour the earth hunting for that one gold bar you missed, which in these areas would be a nightmare. Considering the nature of these levels, they become only as good as this game's sense of discovery. And it is good. While some secrets certainly lack the need for intuition, most are filled with surprise combat encounters, gore nests, and puzzles that don't break any new ground, but certainly get the job done. And gamers can rejoice knowing that surprise hentai tentacles are indeed back. I could talk more about the brilliant flow and pacing of this game's standard levels, the freedom of the open ones, or how the Slayer's lack of mobility makes some secrets mind-numbingly easy to uncover. But you know what? I'd much rather talk about the fucking cosmic realm. After casually riding the ancient god of a mysterious realm through a portal, you emerge underwater, unable to fight the current that's pulling you further into the unknown until you arrive at the best stretch of levels in the game. Entering a new realm in Doom hasn't felt this hauntingly significant since going to hell for the first time in 2016. The eerie atmosphere, the Lovecraftian horrors roaming in the distance, the Lovecraftian horrors that try and kill you, and the mind-bending physics that make puzzle and traversal sections absolutely stand out compared to the rest of the game. Finding secrets in the cosmic realm goes from perfectly fine to mind-bending and unexpected. From an endless circular hallway that doesn't stop until you turn around, to a giant cube that you have to rotate, and leverage water that doesn't obey physics to figure out how to reach the rewards. There is one secret that takes you through a winding series of hidden rooms, which eventually leads to a tight hallway where a fucking army of Hell Knights ambush you, making for one of the most chaotic, tense, and claustrophobic encounters in the game. And beyond just some cool secrets, look at this place. From the city of Ryul to the temple of Lomarith, to an entire level casually spent inside Cthulhu's fucking stomach, because of course, the cosmic realm is just fucking awesome. Doom the Dark Ages makes an effort to diversify its levels, from the reliably excellent standard Doom experience to the open world non-linear twist on it, and the mind-bending insanity that is the cosmic realm. The secrets you can find are for the most part carefully woven with a blend of puzzles, traversal, and combat encounters in between that makes reaching each of them somewhat rewarding. But for a game that sacrificed all other potential game modes for the best campaign possible, every secret you uncover is only ever interacted with from a menu. Progression resources, codex entries, weapon skins, extra lives, and toys are all this game has to reward you with. Where are the goddamn Slayer gates, the room trials, the challenging secret encounters that reward you with a cool-ass gun or item at the end of it? I couldn't give two shits about finding 3 gold bars and a ruby at the end of a long, winding secret tunnel that took 15 minutes to uncover. Why, of all things, in a game with an added focus on explorative elements in some levels, is there next to nothing interesting to actually find? This is the biggest campaign in the franchise, 22 chapters, and it's also the least consistent. Parts of it just feel hollow, undercooked, and this next innovation was certainly not worth the trade-off. Let's get this out of the way. Yeah, the Mech Dragon parts suck. Everyone, their mother, and their mother's cousin's neighbor's adopted twin's dog knows by now that no one likes the Mech Dragon levels. But, hot take incoming, they are not the irredeemable piles of garbage that the masses may have you believe. If you're looking for that, then Lord of the Rings Gollum is right over there. See it? Get that shit out of here. What they are is an okay distraction at best, and a repetitive slog, devoid of any semblance of engaging mechanics at worst. Let's start with the mech levels, of which there are approximately 2.5 of. Ever since Eternal, we've always wondered when that mech was going to become a thing we do. And well, curiosity didn't kill the cat, it fucking eviscerated it. But the spectacle is cool. The sheer scale of being able to take on Titans face to face, the catastrophic destruction of walking through entire buildings and bridges. It looks cool, and it feels cool too. And then you throw a punch. You dodge. And then you realize that's all there is to mech combat. A button-mashing arcade fight that you don't even need thumbs to master. Seriously, Mortal Kombat the 1992 arcade game has more depth than this. You can also charge up heavy attacks after senselessly mashing punch enough times for a ground stomp attack, a super punch, and in Chapter 22, a big fucking shoulder gun attack. And a recent patch did make it so you can combo each heavy hit in succession with a full charge, which is a small change that makes a world of impact. But it doesn't stop it from growing incredibly stale and grossly repetitive within minutes. It's worth noting that there are sections where you have a gun, which are slightly less mind-numbing, but the sum of its Titan-sized parts is a mediocre distraction that feels incredibly undercooked. The silver lining is that these levels are never longer than 15 minutes at most, and there are nowhere near enough of them to dampen the overall experience. But that doesn't change the fact that the game would be better without them. And come the fuck on, a boss fight with fucking Cthulhu is relegated to a goddamn mashing sim, which is just a tragedy. But how about the dragon levels? Well, I'd say I enjoyed them slightly more than the mech, but it's no thanks to the actual dragon. Meet Surat, the deadliest dragon known to Sentinel kind, who the Slayer of course tamed, because he's just that guy. The idea of Doomguy earning the respect of the biggest dragon on Argentinur reinforces his wholesome affection for animals in the most Giga Chad way possible, which I just love. But with Surat comes dragon combat, to which I have to say, what is this QTE? A 5-year-old could do this blindfolded bullshit. This is dragon combat? While flying around the sprawling aerial map certainly has its spectacle, the second you have to shoot something, it boils down to locking onto your target, removing any semblance of 3D aerial control, and dodging attacks in 4 cardinal directions while perpetually holding down the shoot button. And that's it. You can't even breathe fire. However, contrary to mech levels, there's more to the dragon than just shooting things. The saving grace, and the reason I like these levels more than the mech, is because there's still core Doom gameplay scattered throughout. The dragon in most cases is no more than a means of transportation between sections, and while its inclusion certainly isn't justified, the novelty of riding a fucking dragon in a Doom game is almost enough to carry you through it. The mech and the dragon are supposedly what this game got instead of multiplayer or an arcade mode, and you have to wonder, was it worth it? I respect id's dedication to innovate. They tried something new here, but there wasn't nearly enough put into it to make it work. And when even the core Doom levels of the campaign feel like there are missing key elements, you really do have to wonder, why? And with that, there's just one more thing missing from this game, and it has to do with music. There isn't a soul in hell who thought Finishing Move, the composers of Doom the Dark Ages, could possibly deliver an OST on par with the work of Mech Dragon. Sure, we hoped, but those are impossible shoes to fill. And for what it's worth, Finishing Move are a talented studio, and they produced a pretty good score. But it's like comparing a nice, ripe, red delicious apple with a 28-karat solid gold figurine of an apple that's the size of a watermelon. One is really good, and the other is irreplaceable. Mech Dragon is not the composer of this game, for very unfortunate reasons that if you're not aware of, you should check out this video by Malconviction. Links in the description. It's pretty good. Because I don't think it's been conveyed just how much of an impact the music of 2016 and Eternal had on the overall experience, and how much of a loss this really is. Nothing will ever beat the absolute ass-to-taint insanity of Doom 2016's OST and the notable parts of Eternal that matched it. The way BFG Division heightens the exaggerated big dick energy of having a big fucking gun to Harbinger constantly playing in my head rent-free. The surreal atmosphere that Damnation sets when you enter Hell for the first time. I constantly find myself whistling Eternal's menu theme, and it's not always a conscious effort. For the opening montage, I reused At Doom's Gate, because there isn't a single track in this game that gave me the same testosterone-fueled adrenaline rush as that song does. Mech Dragon is a legend, and it's a shame he isn't composing the Dark Ages, because I can't recall a single memorable track. When the opening title screen rolled for the Dark Ages, I didn't beat my fists, fighting the urge to scream, "Fuck yeah!" I sighed. The music just didn't hit. It wasn't this. It was this. And it's not even bad. It's just nowhere near as iconic. There are some good tracks here, don't get me wrong. The OST did actually grow on me by the end of my time with the game. But 2016 didn't have to grow on me. It hit me like a freight train and single-handedly fostered a newfound love of metal and Doom as a franchise. You might say I'm making an unfair comparison, and that's partially true, but it's also the point. Music has the power to transform art. Yes, in games it's there to elevate what's already present, but in Doom, it's just different. And when, in this game, that's no longer the case, something significant is lost. To end this segment, I do want to reinforce that Finishing Move did a fine job. From the Ashes, Infernal Chasm, and the menu music are songs that have me bobbing my head, but it still feels generic. It's metal, not Doom. The Dark Ages unmistakably feels like a piece is missing, and that piece is Mech Dragon. When it comes to story and Doom, historically the two couldn't care less about each other. At least that was the case in 2016, where its story was told entirely in the background through the environment, the codex, and the only 3 voiced characters in the whole game. And Eternal kicked things up a notch and told a more complex, involved story that greatly expanded its scope. but still largely delivered its narrative in the background, showing those key moments, revelations, and over-the-top showcases of testosterone in cutscenes, but leaving the expository details in the background for you to uncover yourself, giving you enough to comprehend what's happening, but nowhere near enough to fully understand it. In Eternal, cutscenes were still far and few between, and while the story's scope was larger, it was still purely told from the Slayer's perspective. And now, The Dark Ages takes things not one, but 3.5 steps further and tells a full cinematic narrative with a wide cast of characters, complete with cutscenes spanning well over 5 minutes in almost every level. A lot of people say that when it comes to story, 2016 had it right, but for me, Eternal nailed it. Its DLC kinda made some questionable decisions, but its campaign was fucking excellent, and I think The Dark Ages takes things a step too far, and I have a lot to say about it. Let's start with a quick rundown of the plot, because I'm betting a sizable number of you skipped over most cutscenes, or just didn't care enough to pay attention. Set in a time post-Doom 64 and pre-Doom 2016, a war wages across realms between the Sentinels of Argent-D'Nur, who are allied with the Makers, and the forces of Hell. Commanded by the Archdemon Azrak, the Prince of Hell is on a conquest to rule over his realm uncontested, and as long as the Doomslayer is the only thing the demons fear, that won't be possible. Azrak seems to be the only demon in existence who doesn't fear the Slayer, and through an alliance with a mysterious being from another realm who's known only as the Witch, they are both on the hunt for a big powerful MacGuffin known as the Heart of Argent. And we pick up Chapter 1 with the Doomslayer, whose mind is trapped, tethered to the Maker's will as he's deployed to do what he does best. Kill fucking demons. Still wish the old theme was here. The core problems with this story boils down to its writing and its perspective. For a full-blown cinematic narrative that expands the scope well beyond the Slayer's point of view, the characters it shifts to are lifeless. There's no development, there's never any nuance. In the time we spend with everyone who isn't Doomguy, there is nothing but lifeless composites of exposition.
We call it the Heart of Argent. Anyone who wields it, they'd have the power of a god.
It powers their transdimensional barrier. Yes. It is an energy field which prevents the demons from opening a portal.
She uses her sorcery against us.
The true scope of that human's power is unknown to her.
She has the spirit of an ancient sentinel god within her. A wraith who are descendants of this realm.
This is what the majority of this game's story boils down to. It's boring, stale. I've stepped in puddles with more depth than these characters, and it's rarely ever anything more. Doom has never needed exposition. That's always been something left to the Codex, or a voice companion that talks to you during gameplay. And the worst part is, with how much time this game's characters spend explaining everything to you in the most artificial way possible, you still won't have enough to understand what the fuck is actually happening. So what's even the point? The first half of the story is, for all intensive purposes, all-out war. Azrak is on the hunt for the Heart of Argent, invading Sentinel strongholds across the planet with the Slayer deployed to defend it. And throughout it, King Novik leads the Sentinels with Thyra, a high-ranking commander by his side. King Novik is a significant character within Doom lore, and in this story, he's fucking useless. Seriously, he doesn't do anything remotely impactful or interesting. Thyra, on the other hand, would be just as useless if this game didn't do the Diablo 3 thing, where the main new supporting character that you don't give a fuck about is revealed to be the big MacGuffin everyone's after. That's right, the Heart of Argent, it turns out, is actually Thyra. Which should be a big deal, but it doesn't actually make a difference in how the narrative plays out, because just like in Diablo 3, she gets kidnapped and completely exits the narrative with absolutely no semblance of impact or emotion around it. Azrak as a villain simply wants to rule Hell. Well, because. And I suppose he's a demon, so that's good enough, but there's also never any personal stakes or rivalry developed between him and Doomguy, other than he's a demon, and Doomguy kills demons. Why is Azrak the only demon who doesn't fear the Slayer? What makes him different? I don't know, and this game doesn't either, and he's an incredibly generic villain because of it. This problem of weak-ass, flat characters is painfully apparent in the early chapters of the story, where the Slayer is mind-controlled and thus devoid of his character. And it's left to the rest of the cast to set up the plot and develop its storyline. And with no Slayer to entertain with his GigaChat personality, and no possibility to establish any semblance of a tangible relationship between him and these characters, it feels hollow. The first few missions of a game feel as if it's rushing to a place where a captive Slayer has to be deployed so that we could actually play the game. And when he finally breaks free from the tether, it's a big dick energy moment that is very Doom. And yet, there isn't any fallout. Yeah, he's pissed at the Creed Maker, but he also shrugs it off for the next 18 chapters. and doesn't seem upset at all at Novik or the other Sentinels for being very aware of his imprisonment and not doing anything about it. Doomguy will always hate demons more than anything else, but there are never any differences to set aside, no tension to stall until the real threat is dealt with. There is absolutely nothing beneath the surface of these characters in this narrative. Doomguy feels as much a mindless servant here as he did with the Tether, and the tragedy of it all is that there are moments of potential that are just never explored. Novik fully signed off on the Maker's imprisonment of Doomguy, but when he's free, there's never any tension between them. Thyra sees what the Makers are doing to him, and she clearly disagrees, recognizing that he's on their side and making him an unwilling servant is wrong. But aside from like one instance that's left the subtext, it's never explored. The betrayer from Doom Eternal is also here, but has just as much put into his character as there was in Eternal. And his son, who is presumably destined to become the fucking icon of sin, is with him, and neither of them do anything. The Slayer feels like a stranger to characters that are supposed to be his allies, characters that take up so much of this story's screen time, and it's a waste, because all they ever do is vomit exposition. Doom just isn't the kind of game that warrants this narrative structure, at least not with characters written this poorly. You're constantly pulled from gameplay for exposition that could have been woven into it. Doom doesn't need a cast of side characters to make us care about. It just needs demons and a good fucking excuse to shoot them. And that's a story best told entirely from the Slayer's perspective. Take this game's story and imagine it told solely through Doomguy's eyes. Beginning in the game trapped aboard the Maker's ship, trying to resist the Tether as the Creedmaker taunts you, only to be deployed into a war zone in front of a fuck ton of demons. What if King Novik played a similar role to Samuel Hayden in 2016, guiding you through the story and levels, establishing key plot points and developing a palpable tension? But instead of begrudgingly working with a deceptive robot who clearly has an ulterior motive, it's a former ally who betrayed you. And after putting your differences aside, maybe some form of mutual respect is earned between the Slayer and Novik by the end of it. I'm no writer, but I know poorly written exposition vomit when I see it, and that has never been something that Doom suffered from until now. With all of that said, the absolute staple of any kick-ass Doom story is seeing Doomguy do some badass, Giga Chad, fuck machine run out of fucks to give, cool ass shit. Sticking a BFG down the final boss's throat because fuck that guy. Walking into a room and watching everything quiver in fear. Shooting a hole in fucking Mars because fuck you, it's faster. In this regard, the Dark Ages doesn't disappoint. From the moment he breaks free from the Tether, as the kids say, the aura farming never stops. While the first half of the story is largely plagued by its flat characters and reliance on exposition to drive the plot, it certainly has its moments. And the second half, while still suffering from those same issues, kicks things up a notch. When Thyra is taken to the cosmic realm, the Slayer casually frees an ancient Lovecraftian god for the sole purpose of catching a ride back to his home, where cutscenes all but cease for a few levels, which is another reason why I think the cosmic realm is the best stretch of levels in the game, but it's also because Cthulhu fucking swallows Doomguy whole, which leads him to casually nuke his fucking organs and kill him from the inside. And it only gets more unapologetically badass as the Slayer finds Thyra, but is subdued and eventually killed as he drowns in acid. But I guess he's just too fucking pissed off to die, because we then witness the genesis of this iconic line.
They are rage, brutal, without mercy. But you will be worse. Rip and tear until it is done.
And as the Slayer wakes up in hell as a zombified corpse, shoots his way through the Harbor of Souls and ferries his own soul back to Argentinur with no tolls paid.
Payment required.
He's resurrected by his allies in a pretty cool scene. Seeing the genesis of the rip and tear until it's done thing is cool as fuck. And yet here, it also reiterates this story's crippling flaws, because there's no substance beneath it. The betrayer is the one to bring the Slayer back, but we barely know the guy. He hasn't had anything even remotely significant or interesting to do. And where is Novik, the character who opens every Doom game with the very line we're seeing the origin of? Why is he the only one to affirm the Slayer's mission in every game? Last I checked, Novik considered him nothing more than a weapon to be used, and they've hardly interacted since. Yes, he saved Novik's life that one time, and it's another cool moment of spectacle, but again, there isn't a dynamic between the two established. The endpoint we're seeing here suggests some form of mutual respect has been earned, but that's never translated on screen. And with how much time we spend listening to Novik expositing plot details, that time would have been far better adding substance behind this moment instead. And with that behind us, the final act is nothing but balls-to-walls action, gore, and violence. The Slayer, after climbing his way out of the afterlife, finally confronts the Creedmaker, and, well, fights a resurrected Cthulhu, and, well, confronts Azrak, but he kills our dragon Surat and gets away, which is yet another moment that fails to deliver any emotional impact. But it does piss Doomguy the fuck off, so he tracks down Azrak in hell and fights him again with the witch by his side. And, well, for what it's worth, ending this mission with the Slayer chucking Azrak's decapitated head into a crowd of demons, instantly making them all fear for their lives, is a pretty high note to end on, I have to say. If you want a story with a collection of cool shit happening that's later justified with lore entries, you will absolutely find that here. That's Doom, and it's fucking awesome. But there is also so much more that bogs it all down. So much dialogue that puts you to sleep. So many cutscenes with characters you don't care about. There are clear disconnects between where some cinematics end and where some levels begin that breaks your immersion. Doom doesn't need hours worth of cutscenes and an ensemble cast of characters to tell a layered, complex story that's ripe with violence and spectacle. Eternal is proof of that. This is a step down, and after all, we are still talking about story in a Doom game, so it's hardly a deal breaker. But that doesn't mean it shouldn't be criticized, because it could be so much better. On the bright side, it seems the campaign's ending might take the DLC right into the Slayer Testaments from 2016, which is exciting, and I can only pray they do it justice. The tail end of the campaign is, if anything, a bit of a boss rush, so now is as good a time as any to touch on the bosses. I don't have a whole lot to say. The Creedmaker is the easiest, and also the most consistently enjoyable, with a focus on positioning and dodging projectiles while a plethora of different attacks come your way. The old one is a mech fight, so it sucks. And of course, in a game that has medieval Pacific Rim in it, this fight was always going to be a mech fight. But fuck, I would have taken a fresh take on the Icon of Sin fight with this game's combat mechanics any day of the week. But luckily, Azrak is better. It's a parry sim that does drag on for a phase too long, but the timing does take some practice to get down, and the spectacle for the game's final boss fight is there. Except it's not the game's final boss fight. A watered-down Azrak with a neutered moveset taking turns with a projectile lobbying witch is actually another solid fight. But the spectacle and grandeur of the fight before this felt like far more a finale than this basic tag team duo match set in Azrak's sex dungeon does. But overall, mech fights excluded, boss fights in Doom the Dark Ages are perfectly fine, above average if you will. A very large step up in regards compared to the Dark Lord, which doesn't say much, but they fail to leave a lasting impression, which means that at most, they'll leave you underwhelmed, and at best, briefly entertained. Doom the Dark Ages, at the end of the day, is another damn good fucking Doom game. id Software have redefined what it means to innovate in a sequel, where most games build off what's already there, refining the formula and adding layers on top of it. id Software, for 3 consecutive games, have fundamentally rebuilt it. 3 games that all feel incredibly distinct, while still somehow never straying from Doom's core design philosophy. The Dark Ages doesn't have the best story to tell. Its level design treads new ground for the franchise, and not all of it works, and the music is sorely lacking Mick Gordon's touch. But the combat is as visceral as ever. Levels are drop-dead gorgeous, set pieces are bombastic, and the Slayer is as much a hulking beacon of testosterone as he's ever been. This is still a game that will get your local priest wet, and its medieval theme hits you like an F-150 with such a rich, enthralling identity that courses throughout every fucking pixel of this experience, making it incredibly unique, not just for Doom, but first-person shooters as a whole. How many FPS games do you know that are designed around a fucking parry? I can absolutely see this game being the favorite amongst some fans, solely because of its distinctive medieval theme, and if not, the sum of its parts might very well be the worst of the modern Doom trilogy. But no matter where you sit, it's still an excellent fucking game, and it's still, without a shadow of a doubt, absolutely fucking rules. Thank you for watching. This is now my 3rd Doom video I've made, with the trilogy now complete, and the support has been overwhelming. Making videos over the past year has been a solid character arc for me, with each getting progressively better in terms of scripts, editing, and concept. And looking back, if I were to make those videos today, the Doom ones in particular, I would make some changes. I got some things wrong, my opinions have shifted slightly since, and yes, I was wrong about the Marauder. Maybe I still suck, I don't know. Leave an angry comment if that's true. But if you have enjoyed this video, do consider checking out my other content. I have a 2-hour critique of Warframe recently uploaded, if that's of interest to you. And my next video will be an in-depth look at Cyberpunk 2077. If you're purely here for Doom and Doom only, then don't worry, because this certainly won't be my last Doom video. But again, thanks for sticking around this long. To end things off, I thought I'd leave you with a collection of some abhorrently vulgar lines of dialogue that I wrote, but didn't end up putting in the video for reasons you won't have to guess. But anyways, I'm done talking. Where the fuck's the DLC at? This video will contain absurd levels of profanity, and if that's a problem for you, then sorry to say.
But you're just gonna have to shut the f up before and stick it up your pull it back out, and when you're crying on your fucking knees, and just when you think it's over, I'll be sure to one last time, because there's only one way to talk about a fucking Doom game with copious levels of testosterone and 0 fucks given.
Look at this poor little bastard. He's got no idea. I'm about to
massacre his entire fucking bloodline and grind their skulls into fucking ammunition so I can do the exact same fucking thing to his fucking neighbors. Lick my fucking taint, you illiterate fuck. The only thing you should fear more than me is the big fucking crossbow I'm about to shove up your fucking ass.